Alright, so welcome back to Dominion Dark Ages, What's in the Box, Part 4. Alright, so the first card I wanted to go over for this video, which is a 4-costing card, is actually why I say that possibly there could be a silver strategy as well in this expansion. Because there are 3 cards that could be very useful for getting a lot of silvers. And so let's go over the main reason why I say that this would be a silver strategy. Once again, I don't think there's officially a term for a silver strategy, but in my eyes there is. And so let's go over it. So we have a victory card. Now this is the... I want to say this is the only one, but there is technically one other. That's a victory card that gives victory points. But we'll go over that later in another video. But this is like pretty much the only official victory card, meaning there is one other one, but there's only one copy of it. This one you have at least 12 copies of if you're playing with 3 or 4 players, and 8 obviously if you're playing with just 2. But the Feodum is a victory card that's worth 1 victory point per 3 silvers you have, rounding down. And then when you trash this, you'll gain 3 silvers. So this gives you a benefit for trashing this. You get 3 silvers, 3 more. So if you have a lot of Feodums at the end of the game, you could have some extra victory points. So this is kind of cool. And this is definitely a silver strategy card. So obviously it's important to find cards that will give you silvers. And there are. Here we have Squire. If you get a lot of these Squires and you play a bunch of them in a same turn, you're going to get tons of silvers. And so this would definitely come in handy. Now, there are other cards in other expansions that I would include into the whole silver strategy. But the one I'm thinking of isn't really a card. It's actually an event in Empires that gave you tons of victory tokens for every silver you gained. And so I'm trying to remember what it was. I can't think of it right now, but it was definitely an event in the Empire's expansion that gave you tons of victory tokens for every silver you gained that turn. So if you played Squire that turn, a bunch of them, you'd get a bunch of silvers, and that would work with that event. If this wouldn't work, of course, with that idea of the event, but this would, and so would this. So you could if you were able to trash this, you'd get 3 silvers. So if you bought that event and you were able to get 3 silvers by trashing one of these, and you were able to play a couple of these cards and get a couple of silvers, and assuming you were able to play another card that let you trash the Feodum to begin with, like, oh, I don't know, how about rats? You could gain a lot of victory tokens that turn, which is awesome. Which would still be better than the Feodum, because then, yeah, it's worth 1 for every 3, but you'd get a bunch of victory tokens that wouldn't fill up your deck with a useless card. But at the end of the game, this could be worth some victory points if you have a lot of silvers. So this is definitely a silver strategy. And then the Beggar, like I said, would also work with that too. If another player played an attack card, you'd get 2 silvers with the Beggar. So that's pretty cool. That is really cool. And you could, like I said, react with this quite a bit. If they kept playing attack cards on you in their same turn, or if you were playing with 4 players and they each played an attack card, you know, if you had a bunch of these in your hand, you could, you know, discard these to gain a lot of silvers. But at least if they played 1 attack card on your turn, I mean, before your next turn, you'd at least get 2 silvers. So that's pretty cool if you had a lot of beggars in your hand. And I have had turns where I had like 2 or 3, and I wasn't able to use them as an action anyway. But because other players were playing attack cards, I was able to get a bunch of silvers. So that was very useful. And so that's pretty cool. I like this silver strategy a lot. But yeah, I think these are the only 2 cards that really work with Feodum. There are other cards that let you gain cards, of course. But I think those 2 actually, since they actually say silver, they work really well with the Feodum. And so, you know, I'd have to say Feodum is pretty cool. Then we have the Iron Monger. And this one is basic. It gives you a card and it gives you an action. And then this is a card that is like, it's not a village in the sense that it'll give you 2 actions, but there are times when it could possibly give you 2 actions when you play it. So reveal the top card of your deck. You may discard it. Either way, if it's an action card, you get +1 action. So you get a card, you get an action, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it was an action card, you would probably put it back if it was an action card, but at least you'd get 2 actions. So that's kind of cool. But then if it was a treasure card like a copper, well, you'd get a treasure at least, you know. And of course you don't have to, if it was like a gold or a silver, obviously you're going to put those back and not discard them probably. But you would still get a treasure at least. And then if it was a victory card, you get to draw another card. So that's really cool. You get a victory card, you get 2 cards, and you still have 1 action. So that's really cool. Ironmonger is definitely one of my favorite cards in this expansion, and it's really fun to play with. Then we have the Procession. You may play an action card from your hand twice, trash it, and then gain an action card costing exactly 1 treasure more than it. So this is kind of cool. It's kind of like a throne room because you do get to play a card from your hand twice, but then you have to trash that action card. But then, here's what's cool, then you get another action card costing 1 more than it, exactly 1 more than it. So that is really cool. This is a really powerful card. You get to double a card, then you get a better action card, probably, if there is one. You know, if you used an action card costing 6, and there probably isn't one costing exactly 1 more than it, right? If you use this on a 5 and you weren't playing with any of the action cards that costed 6, obviously not so much. But if you use this on a 2 or a 3 or even a 4, that's a pretty cool card for sure. All right, now let's try to get through the rest of these 4 costing cards in this video, because there's still about 4 more of them. So next we have the Scavenger. With this, you'll get 2 treasure. Then you may put your deck into your discard pile. Then look through your discard pile and put 1 card from it onto your deck. So it's sort of like Harbinger, but Harbinger at least lets you put a card into your hand from your discard pile. But this guarantees that you'll be able to do it because this allows you to put your deck into your discard pile. Of course, if all the cards are in your hand and not in the deck, and you have no discard pile, then obviously that's not very useful. At least you get 2 treasure for playing it, though. But how often does that happen, really? But most likely, the case is you'll have most of your cards in the deck, and if you don't have a discard pile, well, you always technically have a discard pile. So even if you have nothing in the discard pile. So this guarantees that you'll be able to look through your discard pile and put 1 card from it onto your deck. So that's pretty useful. That could come in handy for your next turn. You know, if you want to get some good cards, that can be very cool. Then we have the Armory. Now, this one allows you to gain a card onto your deck costing up to 4. So it's better than Workshop. Workshop lets you gain cards, right, from the original Dominion game, base game. But all those cards you gained would go to your discard pile. So using this will allow you to use that card early on in the game because it's going on top of your deck instead, costing up to 4. So that's a really cool card. Then we have the Wandering Minstrel. And with this, you'll get 1 card and 2 actions. So it's very similar to a village, right? And then reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Put the action cards back in any order and discard the rest. So that's kind of cool. It could strengthen your next turn, too. Because you'd get to discard all the cards. Well, that would include treasures, too, obviously. But it could ensure that your next turn, or maybe even this turn if you had other cards that let you draw cards, it could ensure that you get just action cards. So that's cool, maybe, assuming the next 3 cards were action cards, if any at all. But still, that's a pretty cool card. So, all right, let's go over the next ones. Now, we're going to go over 1 4 costing card and 2 5 costing cards, hopefully, in this video. Because these 3 cards here work with a treasure card that's not in the supply, called the Spoils. So here we have the Marauder. And with this, you'll gain a Spoils from the Spoils pile, and then each other player gains a Ruins. So this is an attack card that's going to give you a Ruins. Now, whenever you see this, I didn't go over this, but whenever you see this thing that says Looter, it means that it works with the Ruins. It's going to give out Ruins, or you're going to get a Ruins. Like with Death Card, you get Ruins when you gain it. This, each other player gains a ruin, so this is an attack card that gives out the ruins. So what's the spoils? Because you gain a spoils from the pile, right? Well, here's the spoils. It's basically a gold, but when you play this, you'll return it to the spoils pile. So it's a temporary gold. So that's kind of useful. It could become in handy. If you're having a hard time getting golds in the game, maybe, at least getting temporary golds could be useful. All right, then we have the Pillage. Now, as far as attack cards go, I have to say that this is probably my most hated attack card there is, but really it's not super hated, I just dislike it. So we'll go over it. So you trash this attack card, and that's the main reason why I don't like it, because it's a one-time use attack card. But then each other player with 5 or more cards in hand reveals their hand and discards a card that you choose. And so in a sense, that's the only reason why I don't absolutely hate it, because I like the idea that I get to look at their hand and pick which card that they're going to discard from their hand. A lot of times you hit them with a militia and they just discard a couple of estates, right? Well, that didn't work out for you too much. They're like, ah, sure, I don't mind just discarding my estates. But this, you're like, ooh, discard that gold. So that's really cool. And then you'll gain 2 spoils from the spoils pile. So at least you're going to get something, even if it is temporary. You're going to get 2 of these by trashing this and getting to attack somebody. So that's its redeeming quality. And so that's why I don't absolutely hate it. But I'll still play with it, and there have been times when I did buy it and play it a couple of times just to try it out, just to, be a little bit of a pest to some of my friends. Now, then we have the Bandit Camp. And this one gives you a card and gives you 2 actions. So very similar to a village. It's just not village in name. And then you'll gain a spoils from the spoils pile. So, once again, this is a card that will give you some spoils. So that's really cool for a 5 constant card. And that is probably the best one you can get that's going to give you spoils out of all of these here. But that's pretty cool. All right, so we'll continue with the 5 costing cards in the next video.